In today's video, I'm going to be building a couple of top-tier F-tier houses. Greetings friends, Khaios here. In the first video back this year, I released something I had been working on for quite a while, the all-block tier list. In that video, I ranked every single block in Terraria, twice. Once objectively and once subjectively. If you haven't seen that video, you should definitely give it a watch. Today, I'm going to be building two houses. I'll only be able to use the blocks available in my F-tier lists. Since I had both an objective and a subjective tier list, today there will be both an objective and a subjective F-tier house. Not every block has a wall and furniture, and I want these houses to be valid and to look decent, so I'm not going to restrict myself on walls or furniture. I can use whatever I want, but in terms of blocks, I can only use the F-tier materials. Additionally, I don't want to use any natural generated landscape for these builds, because that would include blocks that aren't in the F-tier, so I will set up two small boxes. I can only build within these areas. Before we jump into the F-tier house, if you're looking to pick up some of the official Terraria merch, be sure to use my affiliate link in the description. There are a lot of really great items on the store already, and according to Chippy Gaming's latest video, there is a new design coming as well. If you do pick up some merch, be sure to use the code KHAOS15OFF to get 15% off of your first order. Every purchase goes to supporting both Relogic as well as this channel, and it is greatly appreciated. So let's take a look at what blocks I will be free to use in the objective F-tier house. We've got sandstone slab, red and blue dynasty shingles, bone block, coral stone block, all of the colors of team block, living wood, and living mahogany. That's it. How the heck am I going to be throwing all of these into a cohesive house? My first thought was focused around the coral stone block. I could easily make a coral reef in the ocean and do a beach house. That thought happened before I set my no natural generation rule, because in that case, the naturally generated beach would be doing most of the visual heavy lifting. So that's when I created the rule. After some brainstorming, I have just the idea for these blocks. I'll keep it a surprise for now, and I'll see how long it takes you all to guess what I'm building, because I'm certain you will be able to guess what I'm building. I imagine it'll be pretty fast for you guys to figure out, but let's get the house started. At first, I was thinking of using sandstone slab for the exterior edges of this build, but I wasn't really happy with the brick texture, so I swapped it out for living wood. I am going to try and use every block in this build, though obviously they will be heavily painted, so I carry those sandstone slabs into the center of the build with another square, which I paint and actuate. Beneath that, I build a plus shape with more of the living wood and two circle shapes using the red and blue dynasty shingles. I was considering using bone block beneath those circles, but I wasn't really happy with that, so I just grabbed some platforms. I decided to use the bone blocks to make a checker pattern of tiny circles in the bottom right hand corner of the build, which are also actuated. Beneath the build, I placed some dynasty shingles as well as a line of living mahogany. I realized that I was still missing the coral stone block, and I felt like breaking up the brick pattern of the sandstone slab, so I blended the coral stone block in with the sandstone slab. Finally, I changed the overall color of the living wood from gray to red. I am fairly certain you all have figured out what I'm building by now, but in case some of you are too young to get the reference, I'm building my own take on a Game Boy Color. I know, very old school, an ancient relic from an ancient chaotic being. So obviously the box in the center will be the screen. But what game will I be playing on it? Well, I will not be surprised if you all figure that one out quickly as well, but before we get to building the game in the screen, this thing needs some walls. Again, I'm not going to be limiting myself on what walls I can use for this build. Not every block will have its own walls, and I didn't rank all of the walls at all, so I see no reason to limit any choices here. I'll grab whatever fits. Actually, this is kind of a pretty good fit, so I might just keep it. The build is quite large and it's getting fairly dark inside of it now, so I am illuminate coating all of the walls and the living wood blocks to get rid of those pesky shadows. The only other walls in this build will be in this screen. I'm going with topaz gemspark wall with brown paint for the majority of it, with some cyan painted gold bricks on the edges. With the walls done, and before I add the game to the screen, which will really bring this build together, I need to make it a valid house. That's the entire point of this video after all. In terms of furniture, it doesn't really matter what I pick. I could do a little scene in the screen area with whatever furniture I want and color it to match, and that would work perfectly, but it's not what I'm going to do today. So I'm just going to place a table and a chair below the buttons. I am going to line the screen with some white torches to provide a little bit more light. Then I'm going to echo coat all of that. So that's the furniture done, and since the start and pause buttons are made out of platforms, and since platforms count as doors, this house is now completely valid. I could echo coat a bed in here if I wanted it to be a spawn location, but you may be wondering how I'll handle getting in and out of the house. I could just punch a hole in the side of the living wood and place a door or platforms there, but that breaks up the appearance. I could also use a teleporter on the outside of the house and echo coat one on the inside of the house, but that feels too predictable. What I'm going to do is use a hoik. As I've talked about many times on the channel, a hoik is an interaction with sloped blocks where entities are pushed through the solid blocks rapidly, which allow you to travel through solid tiles. The addition of block swapping gave us the magical ability to bring hoiks to platforms, as that wasn't possible before. Now, if you slope a block into one of these two shapes, then you block swap it into a platform, that platform will look totally normal. You can stand on it just like usual, but when you try to pass through it, it will trigger a hoik interaction and push you either left or right depending on the shape of the block before the swapping. And this is how I'm going to get us in and out of the house. All I need is a block here, point the slope in this direction, and swap it into a platform. Now, whenever I walk into that platform, it will shove my character into the wall of the Game Boy, and I can simply walk out from there. It's pretty simple. To get back in, I just build another one of these on the other side. I will offset it and put it above the exit. If it was on the same level, the hoik would prevent you from actually walking into the house, and you just get stuck inside of the wall. I'll even add an entrance and exit on the other side of the house. I will echo coat most of these to hide them away completely, though I think I'll leave this one platform visible and paint it black. Maybe this Game Boy was super ahead of its time and had a mic built in? Who knows? This is my own take on it anyway, I just feel like it fits visually, but it also helps to indicate where the door is. Now to build the game within the screen. For those of you paying attention, you'll notice that I haven't used any of the team blocks yet. And for those of you who have been screaming what I'm going to be doing in the comments for the past several minutes, yes, I am building Tetris into the screen. Actually, the entire idea of making the house a Game Boy was because I was thinking about how much the team blocks looked like they belonged in Tetris. I do have to be a little careful about how I build this. Team blocks do not blend with each other, which is very helpful in this situation. However, there are 7 different shapes in Tetris, yet there are only 6 colors of team block. That means I will have to use one of the colors twice. I'll paint them all in the end, so visually that won't be an issue, but I have to be sure not to place any of those 2 repeated team blocks next to each other, otherwise they'll blend together and it will look very weird. Now, I am notoriously bad at Tetris. I thought it would be fun to build a version that's not going so hot, but has an incoming opportunity for success. In a way, it kind of feels like an allegory for my life. Anyway, since team blocks do not blend together, there are a lot of tiny gaps between each of the pieces, which I'm not a fan of. So using some black painted offline gemspark walls, I'm going to line the inside of every team block. This will give them more of a defined outline, and it'll make it so you don't see the tan background behind the gaps. It also seems that I forgot to illuminate coat the orange pieces when I repainted them, so let me just do that. And this is the first house done. A Game Boy knockoff playing a Tetris knockoff. Yes, I know there wouldn't be a mic, nor would there be a power cord on the bottom, but you know what? I don't really care. I wanted to find some uses for all of these blocks, and I'm pretty happy with how this turned out. Now, let's see what I can do with the subjective F-tier blocks. My subjective F tier house has a lot more blocks in it, so I'll have a lot more material to work with. While I am going to try and build with most of the materials in this house, I cannot use all of them. The corruption and crimson blocks will invalidate any house, so for the purpose of this build, they are completely off the list. That leaves me with the following blocks. All 3 pearl sand types: pearlstone, hallowed grass, pink ice, demonite, crimtane, cobalt, palladium, mithril, orichalcum, tungsten, and adamantite ores, rainbow brick, pink brick, green, blue, red, and purple moss, nebula, solar, stardust, and vortex bricks, spider nest, pine tree, and bubblegum blocks, iridescent brick, tungsten brick, and last but not least, active and inactive stone blocks. Whew, that was quite the list. I'm pretty lucky that I have active and inactive stone blocks in F tier. I placed them in this tier because when actuators were added to the game, these blocks became obsolete. But this works quite well in my favor for this challenge, as it gives me a stone block to build with. I have also placed a lot of ore types in this tier, so I think I'm going to go with an underground mine. So to start this build off, let's take this active stone block and build a terrain for me to use within the area. I'm going to start off by filling the box with active stone block. The house is meant to be underground after all. Then I will dig in a few small cave chambers. The active stone is very bland, however, so I'm going to make it far more textured and detailed. Firstly, I'll be using pearl sandstone on the top of every cave pocket. Once all of that is in, I use hardened pearl sand on the edges of the sandstone as well as inside of it to vary the texture more. Neither the sandstone or the hardened sand blend with the active stone blocks, so I'll use pearl sand in between all of those to blend them all together into one cohesive texture. Since the sands are so light in color, I feel like pink ice works as a decent stone substitute, so I'll be using that in some places as well. Lastly, I want to thank you all for suggesting that I build the F tier houses, because today I learned something that I didn't know. In the past, I've pretty much avoided using bubblegum block for years because I thought it was extremely ugly. If I ever redo my tier list, I might actually have to bump this up to B tier, because as it turns out, bubblegum block blends with stone. I'm not sure if it's always been this way, because I very much remember it not blending with anything in the past, so that might have changed when they made blending updates in 1.4, but now it blends, if it hasn't always. I don't know. But not only does it blend, when it's painted gray, it very closely color matches with stone. One of the main reasons I love building with gray painted sandstone is that I'm not a huge fan of the stone texture when it's used in abundance. It's extremely repetitive. But bubblegum block actually does a phenomenal job of breaking up that repetitive feeling. So I blend it throughout the active stone cave. And with that, the landscaping portion is done. But a house this does not make, so let's get to adding some more goodies. Sorry if I sound different here. I've been having issues with recordings getting corrupted lately, and I think there's something going on with the computer that I need to figure out. But the entire audio segment for this next portion got corrupted, and I have to re-record it. It's nearly 11 p.m. at night, and usually I record vocals early in the morning, so I'm probably going to sound quite tired and a bit different, but I have to do what I have to do. I feel like I should make it clear that the entire cave will be the house, not that I'm going to be building a house within this cave, because if I did that, then none of the blocks I just placed would count as being used in the house. So the goal is going to be to validate this cave. I want it to be a mine, so I'm going to be using a stone brick platform, which will act as the staging location for the miners. This will blend pink brick with iridescent brick and pearlstone brick with tungsten brick. Underneath the platforms, as an added bit of texture, and totally not because I can't think of any other use for it, I am placing some sloped pine tree block. Honestly, I kind of like the look of these spikes. Issue is, they only work in one direction, but they remind me of the spikes from Super Mario Bros. That said, pine tree block is still ugly F tier. I decided to place some spider nest block around to make it look as if there was a spider infestation in parts of the cave. While I'm at it, I'll place small pockets of ore all around the area. It's kind of unfortunate that none of these ore blocks blend with the available blocks I have in this tier, but I will fill in all of those gaps with walls in a moment. First, I need to figure out what to do with the celestial bricks and rainbow brick. These are going to be the more difficult blocks to work with. So firstly, I'm going to grab some steampunk platforms, marble column, and sandstone column. Since I don't count any of these as blocks in my tier list, I'm okay with using them in the house. The sandstone column and steampunk platforms will work as a shelf on the right side of the build. On top of the shelf, I'm going to place lines of these celestial bricks. The goal here is to make it look like they've been gathered and processed, and the materials from the mining operation are just sitting on a shelf. I may add some other things to that shelf in the decorating segment, but for now I just wanted to take care of all of the blocks first. Next, I'm going to place lines of marble column and a piece of hammered rainbow brick on top of them. This can feel like a beacon to mark off mining locations or something like that. Look, I don't really know what I'm doing here. I'm trying my best. It's really not an easy block for me to work with. For the inactive stone block, I'm going to pick a spot in the middle of the cave where there's a big open wall and create an area that will add depth as if there's another cave in the background. Finally, the last blocks are the mosses and hallowed grass. I have a choice to make here. I can't plant any of these on active stone block, so do I place small portions of stone and dirt in order to get the moss and grass, or do I not? When I ranked the blocks, I counted them as separate from dirt and stone, so I think I will. That said, I will only place stone and dirt blocks in places where moss or hallowed grass will be. I just need to let the plants grow out, then that's all the blocks in place. Now I'm onto the walls and furniture to help finish up the build. Nearly done, folks. The majority of the cave will be a blend of worn and craggy stone wall. Around the spider nests, I'll be using spider wall and spider nest wall. Throughout the structure, I want to have pockets of gems within the background, so I'll make small clusters of emerald, diamond, ruby, and sapphire wall. Next up, I'll be painting the inactive stone blocks in the background black, then painting the walls behind them shadow, so it feels like there are a few layers of depth in the background. Lastly, I'll wrap up the walls by using green slab and large bamboo as the platform's foundations. Finally, it's time to decorate. I don't want all of these torches lying around, I just used it to light up the area so you could see what I was doing. Now I'm going to replace them by having some lanterns hanging around in various locations. I'll also place some genspark walls behind the ore to make them glow. On top of the platforms, I'll use sandstone lamps. For decorating the cave, I'll be using the Rubble Maker, Strange Plants, and Orange Bloodroot. 2 red lights will sit in the cave wall to make it look like a creature is staring at you through the darkness. And lastly, I'll decorate the platforms with some crates, barrels, bars, a workbench, and a stool, which will complete the house and make it valid. Well, there you have it. You all requested some F-tier houses, and I tried my very best at them. Leave a comment letting me know what you think. If you're enjoying the videos, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. And don't forget, if you're going to be buying some official Terraria merch, use my affiliate link and discount code. A huge thank you to my biggest supporter for the month. Sarcasm not intended. And be sure to check out my channel artist, MythicalWater, linked in the description below. Thank you all very much for watching. Be back soon with a new video. Happy building.